Bhagavate Ramakrishna Om. Salutations to Bhagavan Sri Ramakrishna. The topic today, awakening of divine knowledge. Well, it means awakening. It's not going to fall into your lap from somewhere. So we need to get this clear. It's an awakening of divine knowledge. And this knowledge is another thing we need to clarify, is it is not sensory knowledge. And that includes the brain. The senses and the body have to be transcended for any kind of awakening or any kind of enlightenment. We hear claims about all these enlightenments, and the first thing we see that they are talking about sensory stuff. When we hear, you are listening to me, you're looking at me, our senses are operative. You get one type of knowledge through this sensory apparatus. When you contemplate on what you have seen and what you have heard, that gives you a different type of knowledge. Like Sri Ramakrishna says, I see that you can get a different type of knowledge when you reason. And when you meditate, you get a different type of knowledge. And when there's an awakening, when there is, as Sri Ramakrishna says, when God reveals himself to you, that is to his devotee, that's a different type of knowledge. And this different type of knowledge, this last type, is what is called awakening. It is nothing to do with senses or with reasoning. It has to go through the process of deep meditation, and then we come down to this knowledge. In this, truth is revealed to the person. Now, what is truth? And how is it revealed? In the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna, we hear the future Swami Vivekananda in discussion with Girish Chandra Ghosh, another staunch devotee of Sri Ramakrishna. Both arguing on the nature of reality. Swami Vivekananda says, God is beyond words and thoughts. Avang manasa gochara. It is beyond mind and beyond speech. Sri Ramakrishna interjects, no, that is not true. God can be known through the pure intellect, that is the pure buddhi. And this pure intellect is the same as a pure Atman. He says the rishis of old, the sages of old, directly saw God through this purified intellect. So, from this you can understand that this divine knowledge needs this kind of, it is a direct perception. You perceive it straight. It's like the fruit in the palm of your hand. You don't need any other evidence to prove whether you're holding that fruit in your palm or no. It's a direct experience. So this is what Sri Ramakrishna teaches, that This is a direct perception, and this direct perception is the awakening of divine knowledge. Now, many people have this idea that we can get this divine knowledge through some different means. But the Upanishads are very clear. There are two, or rather three, prerequisites. One is faith, shraddha. It is more than what we call faith. It is faith in the words of the Guru and in the words in the scriptures. Swami Vivekananda says, even if you have faith in all the 330 crore gods or 3.3 billion gods, and if you don't have faith in yourself, there's nothing for you. So he taught faith in oneself. The second prerequisite for any awakening is one-pointedness. It is called tapas. Tapa is literally to heat, Swami Vivekananda, heating up the higher nature. The Mahabharata says the one-pointedness of the senses and the mind is the highest form of tapas or penance or austerities. Even these words are kind of, they don't really correspond to the real meaning of tapas. In fact, life was based on the idea of tapas, austerity, sacrifice. It's a kind of tremendous one-pointedness. You sing or you dance or you sculpt or if it is taken as a form of discipline, a tremendous discipline, you don't need to do any other form of discipline. We don't ask a person who has learned to do some classical dance for the last 40 years, the 50 years, whether that person is doing japa or dhyana or no. No. That itself becomes a means to the realization of God, if that is the goal. This is a perfectly, you can say, valid and a foundational, you can say, the basis of any enlightenment or anything that we do. People want shortcuts nowadays. But unfortunately, there are no shortcuts in spiritual life. You've got to go to the grind, and the rewards are tremendous. The third prerequisite is making your speech and mind one. You don't know when some form of egotism will come inside, and that will masquerade as truth. That also has to be kind of noted. The Upanishads gives us an object of meditation. Now, it has to be understood that the objects of meditation are numerous according to the different temperaments of people, of cultures, civilization. Many people don't want objects of meditation. No, it is imperative in any form of meditation for awakening. You need to have an object of meditation. Now, the Upanishads, which are the Vedanta, they give you the object of meditation. It is this manifest world and its causes. They are not talking about Kundalini and centers of consciousness or mantra, the japa and meditation on the Ishta and this and that. These are just preparation grounds for higher levels of meditation. So the Upanishads speak, especially the Chandogya Upanishad, which we are going to discuss today. And from that, there's one story I would like to extract and present it to us. The Upanishads gives us this manifest world as an object of meditation, and to make it simplified, they divided it into 16 parts. This is that Shodasho Kalo Purushaha, the 16 parts cosmic person. The world and the consciousness that is underlying it is supposed to be meditated upon. This is the cosmic person, the Purusha. All through the Upanishad, you'll find this as an object of meditation. You are meditating on the cosmic person. So the story goes as a young boy, he asked his mother, I want to study the Vedas. Tell me the name of my father and my lineage. So the mother, she was a single mother, single woman, as they say. And she says, I got you when I was young, and I was busy serving in different capacities. I do not know your father. The original is, the commentator clarifies, says she was too busy to ask what lineage the father of the child was. But she says, my name is Jabala and you are Satyakama. So speak of yourself as Satyakama Jabala. And the boy goes to the guru. Now, this was, as you know, we when we were young, we go to school, kindergarten. It started there. And the boys, and even earlier the girls also used to go together, and it was co-educational, and they used to learn the Vedas at the house of the guru. It was a long drawn educational purpose which they fulfilled. And the guru's family becomes the family of the students. So this boy, he says, I want to be a brahmacharin, tell me. So the mother says. So he goes to the guru. Hari Dhrumata Gautama. And the guru asks, what is your father's name and what is your lineage? Obviously. And then he says what his mother had told him. That my mother told me that I am Satyakama Jabala. I do not know my lineage. And the guru, he says, like Swami Vivekananda translates, none but a Brahmin can speak such damaging truth about himself. You have not swerved from truth. I will teach you the Vedas. And he kept the boy and he taught him the rudimentary forms of worship and studies. Now, a little later, he sends the boy out to the forest with 400 lean and weak cows, saying, come back when they are 1,000. The original is saying, follow this herd of cows. Come back when they are 1,000. So he makes obeisance to his guru and he leaves for the forest. Swami Vivekananda says it's a kind of some peculiar methods of education. Maybe he just wanted to protect the boy from the other taunts, from the other students. This boy goes and lives in the forest. And one day, and it took years and years. You must understand that he was a boy, a young child. And as he kept on growing, one day he was sitting beside the fire which he was worshipping. he heard a voice from the center of the herd, a bull, saying, Satyakama, yes, Lord, Satyakama says, we are 1,000 now. Lead us back to your Guru. I will teach you one part of Brahman, 1/4 of Brahman. Speak on, sir, the Lord, Satyakama says. Now the commentator says that the god of air, Vayu, entered into the bull and spoke through him. So the bull says, the east is a part of the Lord, so is the west, so is the north, so is the south. The 4 cardinal points are the 4 points of Brahman. He's saying fire will teach you another part. Now, you hear this, the east is the part of the Lord, so is the west, so is north and south. What have we heard? But we hear the words, but in the mind of Satyakama, who had faith, who had austerity, the you can say one-pointedness, and who was truthful, there's a different type of revelation that sparks in that boy's mind. He actually saw that these 4 directions are the 4 directions which are Brahman. Saying this part of Brahman is called the manifest. Okay, it's called the Prakashavan, manifest. And the Upanishad goes further and says, he who knows this becomes renowned in all the worlds, in all the manifest worlds are open to him. So this is the first quarter of this 16-part Purusha. 4. Earth is the east and the west and north and south. This is the first quarter, the 4. He, next day, as he was again performing the fire sacrifice, fire, then the god of fire, Agni, he says, Satyakama, Satyakama says, speak, O Lord, I am come to teach you a little of Brahman. And the fire said, the earth is a portion of that Brahman. The sky is the portion of that Brahman. The interspaces are the portion of the Brahman. The oceans, the waters are the portion of that Brahman, a part of that Brahman. This is the second quarter of this reality. He's saying, a bird will teach you further. The third night, a swan comes to him as he was finishing his fire sacrifice. And the swan says, Satyakama, I will teach you a little of Brahman, 1 part of Brahman. Speak on, O Lord, he says. Saying this fire that you're worshipping is that Brahman. The sun is a part, the moon is a part, lightning is a part of that Brahman. Saying what? Saying this is the result of knowing this manifested part called Jyotishman, the effulgent. One who knows this wins all the effulgent worlds and becomes effulgent in these effulgent worlds. So it says, the swan says, a diver bird, Madhu, will teach you the rest of Brahman. The next evening, as he was finishing his worship, the bird Madhu comes and tells him, Satyakama, I will teach you of Brahman. Saying this breath, the prana, that which vibrates within each and everything is Brahman. Sight is Brahman. Hearing is Brahman. The mind is a part of Brahman. And this Brahman is called Ayatanavan, that is abode, possessed of an abode. One who knows this part becomes possessed of all abodes, and the worlds become spacious to that person. Now, after this, the boy now approaches, he returns from his years of living in the forest and comes to his guru. And his guru, Hari Drumata Gautama, looks at him and says, Satyakama, your face shines like a knower of Brahman. Who has taught thee? This is a long kind of commentary on it. The original is Brahmavideva Somya Mukam Bhasi. Your face shines like the knower of Brahman. And Swami Vivekananda speaks about this special light which emanates from such a person. That is an index. So, Satyakama is saying, beings other than men have taught me this knowledge. But I have heard that knowledge that comes from the Guru only leads to the highest good. He uses the word Acharyavan Purusha Veda. One who has a teacher, a Guru, knows. And also he's saying, Acharya Devya Vidya Vidita Sadishtham. That knowledge that comes from the Guru is becomes established in you. Is a perfect knowledge. So then his Guru taught him that same knowledge which all these beings had taught him. The gods who had entered as air in the bull, in the fire, in the swan, in the other bird, Madhu. And nothing was left out. Nothing was left out. Yea, nothing was left out. The Upanishad concludes. Now there are two things Swami Vivekananda points out. One is, you can see the direction of a line of thought. From the outside, it is coming inside. The east is a part of the Lord, so is the west, so is the north, so is the south. And then he talks about the waters and the earth and the skies and the interspaces. And then he comes to hearing is a part of Brahman. Life is a part of Brahman. Mind is a part of Brahman. So from the external is being reflected in the internal world. This is the first line of thought you find can be traced in the Upanishads, which is Vedanta. So knowledge has to be spontaneous inside. The second lesson, what Swami Vivekananda says, and that what we need to take away from this is, we see the line, the tendency of thought in those days. Those people knew this world with all these accessories. They knew the directions, they knew earth and water and plants and birds, they knew the life here and everything. It was making the knowledge of Brahman practical through what is known. And as we had mentioned, the commentator Shankaracharya mentions, to find out the causes of what is known. These two aspects of Vedanta are extremely important, because we say, oh, it is difficult, oh, it is impractical. It isn't. And Swami Vivekananda also says that in the days of yore, the kings used to preach this Vedanta, and they were so busy. Imagine an absolute ruler ruling a kingdom, yet they could find time to think out all these sublime thoughts. Compared to their lives, our lives are much full of leisure, ennui, as they say. Our brains need to kind of formulate an idea of Brahman, and this is what you know, this world, the manifest world, and to understand the cause behind it. What's the cause? Say, what's the cause? It is that same spirit that is within you is also there. That is called the Atman. That is the cause. It is not some insentient or some void as a cause. The cause of Brahman is consciousness. This is. Now Sri Ramakrishna says, I saw visions described in the scriptures. Sometimes I saw the universe full of sparks of fire. Sometimes I saw the quarters like a lake of mercury. Sometimes I saw the world as if made of liquid silver. Sometimes I saw the world, all the quarters, means all the 4 quarters, which are the 16 parts, illumined like these Roman candles. You know what's Roman candles? Like these old, like firecrackers. You have a kind of a long tube and you light it, and then all these beautiful multicolored sparks come out. So he's seen this. And then he says, you see, my experiences tally with what has been described in the scriptures. Amazing. This is what he's probably referring. This is that the 4 quarters, the 4 directions, the whole world is now to be meditated upon. And this has to be realized. He says, I have seen this world and its 24 cosmic principles. In the Sankhya philosophy, they used the 24 cosmic principles. In the Upanishads, you find they speak about the 16 parts. What they're trying to give us is an idea of comprehensiveness. This is the meditation on the Saguna Brahman. Brahman, reality as manifest to us. This is the highest form of meditation. This is the awakening. When Satyakama, Jabala, he heard all these teachers teaching, the world teaches you. When your mind is imbued with truthfulness, with faith, and with one-pointedness, there is nothing to stop you from this divine knowledge. It arises spontaneously. And as Sri Ramakrishna says, the pure buddhi, the pure intellect, and the pure Atman are one. In one of the other Upanishads, we also find like pure water poured into pure water becomes pure water. So also is this Atman, the individual, when it merges in the Supreme Atman, becomes that. Atma bhavati Gautama. That is when Yama, the god of death, teaches another student of his called Nachiketas. That's a beautiful, beautiful analogy. So that person then becomes the reality. There is no distinction between. The moment you say, I am separate from this external world, there's still a long, long way for you to go. Because you still feel the body. When you feel your body as the universe, that is the real awakening. Like you feel you're the body, yes, you touch your hands and this is me. This thing will completely go away. You will feel the universe as your body. That is the highest crest of divine knowledge. And then you go beyond knowledge and you become one with it, etc., etc. We don't want to go that far. But this awakening comes to each and every one. The Upanishad, the Chandogya Upanishad, which we have been discussing, is speaking about how a young boy with these qualifications becomes fit for this highest knowledge. And then the truth, that knowledge, the reality, which is the same. People call it variously as God. And they give it various names. As the Vedas say, and which Swami Vivekananda was very fond of quoting, reality is one. People call it by various names. Ekam Sad. Reality or truth is one. Gives various names. So this is the comprehensive view of reality. It's an object of meditation. So do we have to do that only when we are closing our eyes? Sri Ramakrishna says, I have seen that reality with my eyes open and the same reality when my eyes closed. The distinction between internal and external have all become disappeared. So when you say it's external and internal, that same reality flashes there. This is the highest point of divine. This is awakening of divine knowledge. And everyone is eligible for it. Go for it, as they say. Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Tat Sat Shri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu. Now for your questions.
Yes, Maharaj.
Yeah.
I had a question. Why are we so afraid of death of the body when we are not the body?
Oh, that's wonderful. That's a wonderful question. I'll tell you the secret. Spiritual thoughts only can conquer death. The thoughts of death and the actual experience of death itself is very weak compared to spiritual thoughts. These dominate, these completely overpower death and overpowers everything, because the name of God, spiritual thoughts itself, is the most powerful thing in this world. So fear of death and the experience of death itself can be conquered through spiritual thought. Okay. In fact, thank you very much. This was, I don't know, but then I was supposed to make a point about this spiritual thoughts dominating everything, including death. And thank you, Atma Jayananda, for bringing this up. Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah,
Bye, Maharaj.
yeah. Okay, Aishwara.
Namaste, Swamiji.
Yes.
Swamiji, I have a question on this particular section of the Chandogya Upanishad, because all the different kalas are being described, and each of them seem to be a mystical insight on the aspect of Brahman. So how do we do samanvaya of all these aspects and come to this Jiva Brahma Aikyam, which seems to be the purport of Advaita? How do we go from all those aspects to Jiva Brahma Aikyam in terms of understanding this particular text or that section of the text?
You see, the whole talk was this. I want you to rewind. Of course, in today's world, there's no such thing as rewind, but you listen to this talk again. This boy, Satyakama, had gone there. He had been equipped with the requisite materials for divine awakening. And as he goes there in the forest, it's not that he was only tending the cows, be busy. That it's a guru seva. Guru, the words of the guru are extremely, extremely important in the life of an aspirant. Yes, in fact, Advaita Vedanta will also say that ultimate knowledge will come from the words of the guru. Okay. So he was diligent in his performance of his duties. It was not tending the cows there. It was a spiritual discipline. And this is what we need to understand, that everything we do in this world, in our daily life, can be and is a spiritual practice with that proper attitude. Okay? And these 16 parts, or the 4 quarters, is making you understand that this world, this manifested world, is here. What is the Jiva and what is the Brahman? It's one already. It is already Aikyam. It is one. It's only unrealized. So these, sticking to truth, having faith, and having that one-pointedness, making your senses and mind one-pointed, will give us that unitive vision of what we are talking about. So all these things that were displayed, revealed to that boy, Satyakama, you can use this. It's not only meant for him. When you go out, you look at all the directions and try to make yourself at least layer that perception with that thought. You are now looking at me, I'm looking at you. All your senses are Brahman. Your mind is Brahman. That is a part of Brahman. So that Purusha, that 16-part Purusha, is outside as well as inside also. It's talking about Aikyam also. As I said, the tendency was, like Swami Vivekananda, line of thought is from the external coming down to the internal, and then making the knowledge of Brahman practical. So this is how. So whatever you do it as a form of worship. That will bring us into that realization of Jiva Brahma Aikya. The individual soul is but the supreme soul. Okay. Like I said, we are so, when we are, all our knowledge is so sensory and bound by the ego. So that has to become free. Okay. You just try to think about everything that you know is just associated with your ego, with your body and the senses, with your food, with your sleep, with your living and this. See, what kind of divine knowledge is this? It's not divine knowledge. It's only mundane knowledge. 99.99% of all your thoughts are related to your physical existence. When you can transcend that, make 99.9% thoughts of consciousness, then it is there. But like I said, I don't want to go so far. Just we'll graduate slowly, and as we go step by step by step by step. In today's world, we have these quick fixes, fast food and fast this, and everything is fast. that won't do in spiritual life, especially in this meditative life. It's a plod, it's a grind initially, and then you get the results of the tremendous. First is the tremendous joy, the tremendous insights. You're going to get all these things, and you're on the right path. And then it will come to you. Okay. Thank you, Aishwarya. Yeah. Yeah.
Hey, Swamiji, thank you for another talk.
Thank you.
I have a question. You mentioned the universe itself as an object of meditation, and how can we relate that to or incorporate it in our japa practice, our regular practice meditating on the Ishta?
That's a nice one. That's a beautiful question. First is your japa, your mantra, and your Ishta also has two parts. One individual, the other is universal. Okay. So you're starting with this, a particular name and form, which is individualized, tailored for you. And you do it. As you keep on repeating that particular name and meditating on the particular form, that universal aspect of the deity and the universal aspect of that mantra reveals itself to you. So you keep on doing what you're doing, and you know what, you also have two aspects, the individual and the universal. You noticed? Everything has two things, the individual and the universal. We will not be able to survive if this universal aspect wasn't there within us. So you keep on honing your meditation and your japa and this, and it will lead you immediately. There's one, I'll just want to bring up one incident of in the life of Sri Ramakrishna. Actually, it happened in the life of Gopaler Ma, the Gopala's mother. Gopala, this devotee, she used to see the baby Gopala frolicking about, playing with her, doing mischief, everything. Amazing God in the form of the baby Krishna, tugging at her clothes, yelling because the food is not palatable, and etc. etc. And she was like a harassed mother, trying to baby, then try to console that God who had appeared to her as a baby Krishna. It has never been replicated in the spiritual world at such intensity. Later on, that same Gopala's mother, she gets the vision of that baby Gopala in its cosmic form. When one day she was pulling the chariot of that god called Jagannath, pulling, and she gets the whole vision, and she was ecstatic. She was dancing like a mad woman. So she had the vision of the cosmic aspect of that. So we start from here, end up there. Okay? Thank you.
Yes, Swamiji.
Namaste.
In this sensate world in which the householder must live to exist, Sigmund Freud described the feelings of ecstasy as
oceanic feeling. So the question that I had to ask myself, when within this oceanic feeling, and it's a feeling, not a cognitive thought,
Yes.
everything else that is sensate seems to disappear. But it is only a temporary feeling.
You know, Sigmund Freud wasn't much enamored with all this kind of spiritual ecstasies and this and that, because
Yeah.
when he was young, he had dealt with the hyper anxiety of nuns in convent, the kind of the hysteria. And he saw how subconscious forces can make the whole convent hysterical. So he wasn't too enamored.
No. I realize.
Yeah. But his ideas of an oceanic feeling, amazingly, had come from a French author, a Nobel laureate, who wrote the life of Sri Ramakrishna and Swami Vivekananda.
Yes.
And he says that this is, how can you deny this? And then he came a little and said, yes, there's something called the oceanic feelings. Okay, at one point of time, the ego or the id kind of dissolves. And you have the feeling of a kind of oceanic. Okay, so he was speaking from the standpoint of just pure psychology. But today, except for some of his findings about the subconsciousness, most of his theories are all dismissed by higher psychology. Cognitive psychology has come in. So, but for householders, now to get into it, all our rishis, most of our rishis actually, were great householders. There are two paths open to everybody. One is the path of renunciation, nivritti, and the one is the path of pravritti. So pravritti is you live in the world. Sri Ramakrishna gives the example of the water should not be in the boat should be in the water. As a householder, what do? Know that all these things belong to the Lord. He gives an example of a maid servant who looks after all the children of the employer, my Hari, my Rama, my everything. But when she is given a notice to quit, there she goes. She knows her own children are there in a village. But for the moment, you say this is me, that is mine, that is there. But know in your heart of heart that they all belong to the Lord. Try to make that into a kind of a spiritual practice. You don't need to struggle so much. Initially you need to, but then slowly, it is orientation. Actually, everything belongs to the Lord, including you. So when you work, at the end of the day, pray that I belong to you, this was your work, and these are your results. I don't care what results I get. So make a kind of have a kind of a conversation with God. It helps you come out of that small kind of narrow circle. Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have one question regarding growing old. Because when growing old, suddenly body becomes like everywhere. You feel body all the time, all those nicks and bruises. When we are young, we really do not notice it. With age, and suddenly the body is important. How to not remember about how to deal with this, so we still sort of focus on our soul.
When you go to sleep for 8 hours at least, or 6 hours, whatever, You don't think yourself as the body, isn't it?
Well, sometimes it,
Yeah, you don't get good sleep.
yeah.
In fact, I'm thinking of speaking next Sunday on something like this sleep. So we'll deal with that later. We'll deal with that sleep later. But yes, there are certain things like Sri Ramakrishna says. When you inhabit a body, you've got to pay your taxes. Like you have to pay rent, okay, when you live in a house. So you've got to, these are stages of the body. And yes, I have seen many, really good people, their minds being pulled down because of that body is not willing or unable to function as it is. But you must understand that this gift of life had been given to you. You have used it. Now try to think of others, their pain, their misery. See how people all over the world are going through excruciating pain everywhere. Make 5 minutes or 10 minutes of your day dedicated to thinking of them first. Okay? That will reduce your own. Because what happens is when your mind is joined to some of these pains, the physical pain and the mental pain, it becomes increased. So think of others. Secondly, you see, Holy Mother's life itself, she was the mother of the universe. And see the amount of physical suffering she had to go through since she was a child. Compared to her, we are very healthy. Oh, we are just dancing about and this and that. Yeah, try to think of Holy Mother and how she lived the life, and yet she could transcend it. So I want you to also to pray to the Holy Mother that you could forbear all these pains. Help me also to forbear these pains. Okay. And then secondly, it's something like, take care of yourself. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much for talking. And I'm from Vancouver, Canada. And, I watched your many YouTube.
Oh, thank you.
I title quote the dimension of the Atman, and you explain that the 12 fingers from the upper,
Yeah.
there is the space, sound space, and there is in the heart, there is Atman. And is that Atman or Jiva Atman in that real gross body or just causal body?
Yeah, this is the space that we are asked, is the center of consciousness we are asked to use to meditate upon. Okay, 12 kind of fingers up there from the Adam's apple, like here, or 12 fingers from the navel up, something there. Now, there is the Atman, the size of the thumb, Angushtamatra Purusha, there's it. Now, where is this? It is not in the physical body. Okay, that is in the subtle body, that's the psychic body, as you say. I'll tell you a small kind of incident. A friend of mine was studying to be a doctor, and he had to undergo 1 year of internship in a hospital. And then one day, as he was kind of going around, a patient asked him. In those days they had huge open heart surgery. And that patient was a simple person. They opened him and they had a surgery, and he was doing well. So he asked this junior doctor, okay, when you cut open my rib cage and you exposed my heart and you had it operated there, did you see my Atman there? So my friend, he just, no, I never seen anything. There's no such thing as Atman there. And the patient was doing really well. Suddenly all his signs, blood pressure and sugar, everything are going haywire. So what happened? He went into a kind of depression. Oh, you never saw any Atman there? He's saying, no. So the evening he came to me and we are discussing, all these things. He's saying the patient is really bad now. I mean, the operation was good, but he's suffering. I said, go quickly and tell him. The next day he goes and says that Atman is not in the physical body. That heart that we operated on is the physical heart. There is something called a spiritual heart. And it is there in that spiritual heart which has a supreme space in which the reflection of that Atman exists inside. Okay. So, and he goes and tells that patient, and then, oh my God, the sugar kind of drops, the blood pressure is stabilized, and everything is fine. So all his life he kept on thinking the Atman is here, and then he wanted to know whether it has been seen. Then when his perception was corrected, everything was perfect. So it is deep down. The heart is spoken of as the very core of your being. At the very core of your being, there is that, you can say, Atman. Okay. Like Sri Ramakrishna gives another example. I think I can use this. He gives an example, illustration of a saucer or a plate filled with water and the reflection of the sun in it. So the body is the plate or the saucer, the water is the mind, and the reflection in that water of the sun is that individual consciousness.
Yeah. Pranam Swamiji.
Yes.
I have a question related to the prereqs for realizing the Brahman. You did mention that one has to unify the speech and mind. Are there any practices that you would suggest?
Actually, when you speak something which is not true. And others also know. They know there's a shift in your voice, there's a shift in your eyes. Okay? So, it is more it's a subjective, you can say, knowledge. So, try to be as, you can say, truthful to yourself at least. When there's no one around at least. Try to be truthful to yourself. That is the practice. So you've got to watch each and everything that you do. That will make you tremendously conscious of things. Tremendously conscious of yourself. And I'll tell you, there will be tremendous integration within you. There will be tremendous power because, as the Upanishad says, truth alone triumphs. There will be a tremendous feeling of power, of empowerment that comes to you. So, when you keep on doing this, you will understand, you're making your speech and mind one. Okay? So, it's a spiritual practice, a tremendous spiritual practice. Okay. Thank you very much. We have come to the end of our session. And as mentioned, we'll speak about something like deep sleep to get us not not for us to get good sleep, but amazingly to understand your waking state and also to understand what the reality is. Yes, these guys in the Upanishad, these great sages, they went to the bottom of everything. They never left anything undiscovered. They just wanted us fools to apply what they have. So we'll discuss this great, you can say, subject next Sunday. Okay. Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Tat Sat Shri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu. We dedicate all what we have heard, what we have said at the feet of Ramakrishna. May he enlighten us.